Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the NDRP National Dance Residency Partnership 2024 Information Clinic meeting. This is one of the flagship programs for us at Dance Ireland, and it's a huge opportunity for us to connect with our colleagues across the country in support of the development of new work. It's a unique opportunity that brings us all together collaboratively to bring our resources together to invest in new and innovative work, to open up access to our resources, to our spaces, and to build relationships. And I think that's really at the heart of this particular program. We saw that this was an opportunity to, I suppose, collaboratively invest, to bring together the infrastructure that we each have in support and in service of artists and the art form and the work. What's really key to this, the way that this is going to work, so I'm going to just, after I've done a little bit of an introduction, Louise is going to do a little bit of a talk through the brief and how to apply and highlight some of the things that come up every year and things to pay attention to when you're making an application. And after that, we'll answer some questions. So if questions come up, as Katie said, you just pop them into the chat, but there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end as well, if anything does come up. So I suppose to just highlight for us as organisations, I'm delighted to be here with Mary McChilly from Dance Limerick, Laurie Pritchard from Dance Cork Firkin Crane, Alexandra Uzelli from Tipperary Dance, and we've got Galway Dance's new Executive Director, Kristen Fontanella. Joining us from Dance Ireland, you'll see Katie Meehan, who's our new Programme Officer. Welcome, Katie. And we've got Louise Costello, who's the Programme Producer as well. Thanks to everybody for coming today. So really at the heart of this, we want to invest in relationships. We want to invest in the relationship with each other as organisations, to also invest in the relationship with the artists. What we would like to see through this is a relationship that's collaborative rather than transactional. It's something that we will be able to connect with the artists, to deepen a relationship, to open up the opportunities around our organizations, our infrastructures, our local communities. We'd like to we're really interested in getting to know you as an artist. We're really interested in getting to know your work. We're interested in the artistic concept as much as the context within which you're making the work. We'd love to have these conversations. We want to hear from you in terms of the where you are in your career. We want to build that relationship in a really positive way. And this is a great way for us to support you rather than you running around doing all the relationship development. It's here. We're all together here trying to connect the dots for you. So we're hoping it's a bit more strategic way of working as well. This is the fourth year, would you believe, guys? It's the fourth year of the National Dance Residency Partnership. Can't believe we've been doing it for 4 years. It is something that we feel has been successful over the past 4 years. It has developed over the past 4 years in terms of our own relationship as organizations, our understanding of the ecology and how we can sort of invest and support the ecology development and where we can invest our resources, and how we support the artists, including how we invest our own individual resources in terms of space and how it works for us. We're constantly wanting to learn. We're constantly wanting the feedback. And in this coming year, we'll be doing an evaluation of the program and getting feedback from everybody involved as well, so we can look forward to the future and hopefully continuing to invest at this level in dance in Ireland. So I'm going to hand over to Louise, who is going to talk a little bit through the brief and anything that might want to highlight. And then I'll also invite at the end of this, perhaps I'll invite the other organizational leaders to highlight anything they particularly want to say as well about the scheme, if that's okay with you. So Louise, handing over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm assuming everyone has read all the guidelines really, really carefully and has got lots of good questions lined up to ask us. But I thought I'd start by just highlighting some things for you to consider in making an application. Um, I think, as Sheila said, this is as much about the relationships and building a network as it is about bringing in resources such as the studio space, the 6 weeks of in-kind studio space. There's 10,000 in funding. And I would just say from the start that we do recognize that this is not a huge amount of resource. And as you see, there is, we ask people to consider that this is part of perhaps a wider strand of work for you that maybe has other resources. And we have thought of that in a number of different ways in terms of how it might support an artist. And really what it's there is to really expand the possibilities and resource the ambition of an artist with a project that they're working on, whether it's from early stage artistic research or a little bit further on. And there's three ways that that's been outlined in the guidelines, which I hope is really helpful. And it can be for research and development, which is starting and developing a new work in 2024. And so this could bring additional space and resource to that process and really ramp up the possibilities of moving something forward. It can also be a bridge. Sometimes as well, we're thinking about how this fits into the ecology of funding in Ireland. And that may be a bridge between kind of the bursary stage of something where you've been testing an idea and you've done the research and development and you're bringing it forward towards production. And we acknowledge this is not a production residency, but it can be used to bring it as much towards fruition as possible. And we're open, I think, in some of the partners are open to kind of providing some of that technical or production side of things as well within that residency time, if possible. So while we acknowledge this is not it's not a project award, it's not bringing you towards a full production, but it can be used to get you there. So those are the three ways in which we're thinking about that. So we're hoping that it leaves it possible, that these different scenarios leaves it open for how an artist might use this to really resource moving forward with an idea. And I suppose the other thing to say as well in looking at how you're answering the questions is that because this is a relationship as much as it is about kind of resources, it's not just about the infrastructure, it's about the relationships, is that the panel really want to know about you as an artist. And there is room for that within the questions as well when we talk about your artistic vision. And I think it's important for you to feel that you can be clear and articulate about that and give a sense of who you are, because we're interested in that and interested in a longer term relationship than just maybe that's transactional, as Sheila said. And hopefully that will provide value beyond the residency. So the other thing that we wanted to remind people about is budgets. This is something I think that can be a bit difficult in terms of judging feasibility. So the more detail you provide in a budget, the better. And also because we are looking for additional supports and resources that you might have, it's important that you are really clear about what you have in place, what might be in place in the future, and the timelines around that. The timeline for this project is for this residency is from January to December 2024. So it's important for, in terms of assessing, is that we understand where the extra resources are coming in, what is confirmed, what is not confirmed, and for you to have a contingency if funding that you have applied for but may not realize comes in, and that helps us to understand how you're going to approach bringing the project forward if some of the funding that you've identified does not come in. It really helps us to understand feasibility and what impact this funding can have on you in different circumstances. Also to think about paying the artist. Really, really important. We know that the resources are not there for full production, so it's important that you make sure in your budgets you're clearly outlining the rates of pay, not just an overall sum, but understanding how you're benchmarking pay, including yourself. And that's an important part of understanding, again, the feasibility of the project, and that we're making sure that the artists are being paid the requisite amount If you need any assistance with understanding that, if this is your first time doing a large budget, you can always get in touch with us to talk about that. And we can give you some guidance. There are no current standard rates of pay, I think, for dancers and choreographers in Ireland. I know we're looking at doing some work and research around that, but we can certainly talk about it and talk about what's a reasonable and in the kind of current circumstances at the moment. I think as well, we talked maybe if people are struggling, we can provide some template for different scenarios, and we can pop that up with the recording of this. Some of the other things I think to think about is about understanding how you might be flexible within this kind of expression of interest and how you might collaborate with us. So we're not looking for a fully kind of project, but more a sense of how things will progress during your time with each of us. You don't have to stay with you don't have to have a residency with every partner, but it can suit your needs and can be developed in conversation with the partners in January when we all know a little bit more about our funding and resources as well. And I think that's everything I wanted to highlight. So I might throw it open to the other partners who are here if there's anything they wanted to follow that up with.
Maybe I just add that it's a coordinated initiative, it's a coordinated effort, but also each organization has its own idiosyncrasies and its own abilities. Some are more of a venue, some are more artist-led, some are actually a bit of both. And so to also understand where you are and which one or which environment is the most useful for you. So that's also about understanding a bit who is what and not treating this generically or just geographically.
Any other comments from Mary or Laurie? Kristen?
I think, I mean, it feels really covered, and I'd be kind of just curious to hear maybe any that I could respond maybe to any of the questions that the artists have. But yeah, just really, I think it also, there's an opportunity to include which places you might like to go to and why. Would I be right, Louise, in that? Yeah. So that helps to think that through in advance.
We have a couple specifics in that we do ask if you're willing, the artists in residence to teach our weekly classes. And we also ask if you're willing to show, do showing of an informal showing that's free to the public at the end of the residency. Because we like to bring audiences into the process and also give them, have a little talk, have a little wine and cheese, that kind of thing. So, and we also have the Jack Lynch House, which is handy for artists housing.
And just a reminder as well that 10K will cover kind of all of your costs like travel, accommodation, fees, for other creatives, fees for other collaborators as well. Yeah, I think that's everything. Sheila, yes.
Just to kind of add on to what Alex and the others were saying as well, is that, you can choose, I think we've said a minimum of 3 venues. We want to at least reach 3 areas of the country through the 6 weeks. But you could choose 5. It's up to you to see how it works for you, and we will do our best to work around that as well. But it doesn't mean that if you're not connecting with us, for example, in Dance Ireland, that we're not here to support. We've developed, quite often, we had Robin, wasn't it? Robin Byrne last year, and she would come into the office here. We'd be sitting down and talking around the work and what's happening and sort of giving advice and guidance. And I know that everybody involved in this has offered that as well. So if you're not in the venue, we're still part of this network. We're still part of this program. We're still part of this relationship, and we're here to support and advise, and also, you know, share our own connections as well, locally, nationally, internationally, as needed.
There's just something in the chat here from Emily, and she's wondering, would a brief introduction from all the partners / spaces of what you're each interested in or looking for would be good.
I'm just going to respond to that because I think everything is in the brief. Would you mind putting on mute? Sorry. I think everything is in the brief. I don't think that we're each individually looking for something in particular. We're interested in getting to know you. Others can jump in, and this is just where I feel we're working here very collaboratively and collectively. We're interested in learning about you as an artist, what your interests are, and how you see you can connect with us. I'm not sure that you know, you can look at our venues, you can look at the spaces available. If there's specifics around that you would like to know, certainly we can answer that. But this is about the work. This is about the artist perspective. This is about relationship development. And I certainly, the conversations we have been quite open around where that goes. I invite the other partners to respond to that as well if they see fit.
Yeah, I don't think we really have time to describe all of us, what we do and what we have and what we can propose. But that's also an invitation for people to do a bit of homework. Like, we all have a website, and we can also be connected specifically, I suppose.
Just to clarify what's in the guidelines, there's studio space offered in each location apart from Tipperary Dance, where I think, where's there? We have to check that in January. But there's a process to go through once in terms of deciding. But as Laurie said, there is some accommodation available in the Jack Lynch house. And it really is kind of a working out of dates, but each venue is offering studio space in kind, and there is a 10K budget overall. So there is residency possible at each location that's outlined. Any other questions?
Can I ask a question? Hi. I'm just kind of curious, how are you thinking between all of your organizations? How are you thinking kind of in the continuation of this work? So I understand that this is research and this is kind of getting to know the process early, but are you also thinking about sort of presenting finished work down the line, or is the network somehow also extending to that? Do you understand what I mean? Yeah.
We don't have something organized as a network to extend the life of that. We all have, or many of us have, some sort of capacity in a form or another. We have one as a festival, other places have a capacity as a venue to continue the discussion. And I think we're talking about furthering the discussion after that first encounter. And it's also curation, so nothing is guaranteed. It will depend on the work, on the relationship. So there's no, there is ongoing discussions, and there's intentions among people here to try to develop some network to tour, but this is still at discussion level, and we don't have anything as a global proposition in the context of this program.
If I can just add also, Alex, I think the idea of the relationship building is that it would also really support the artists to connect in different places and then really know maybe where the synergies lie, so they could then sort of be ready to go forward for when there is another deadline around project, etc., so that the groundwork is kind of already done. And that will of course be already done for some artists who are applying, and for other artists it won't be already done because they won't have had the opportunity. So I guess it varies. But definitely the intention feels like the relationship building is key to kind of allow things to propel after the time spent then. Yeah, I hope that helps, Maria.
Thanks.
Is there any other questions from anyone? Do any of our partners have anything else they want to say? I won't do a song and dance for you, so.
Anything at all. There's no stupid questions here. Just to say, this is the opportunity to ask us. We're all together here. It doesn't always happen that we're all in the same space. So do pop anything into the chat if you don't want to speak out. We're keeping an eye on that.
I mean, just going to this kind of question about capacities of each partner. I mean, I think just in terms of our space in Dance Limerick has the capacity for, you know, many people. We present the residencies in the church space. But again, it's a matter of how many people you can accommodate within your budget, clearly, and with paying everybody. And then I have, as director, capacity to engage with the artists while they're there. And sometimes other staff members also have capacity to share based on their expertise. And we, you know, offer that as part of this residency as well as part of the relationship building. But again, depending on what artists need and what our own capacity is at that given time. So
yeah, I guess I would reiterate what Louise was saying. We have a technical manager. Many of us have technical staffs, but I think you can't assume that they'll be dedicated to your project 100% of the time. You know, we found that some people don't ask them for anything and some ask for too much, but that person, that skill set is around, but they're not, you know, they can't be fully dedicated to this project or any residency we have, in fact. So it might be good to know that.
I can jump in and let you know that the studio that we have here for Galway Dance is in Terryland, so it's within the city limits. It's a lovely space. It wouldn't be large for 5 more dancers, and it is in a shared building, but the relationship building and the connections that we were talking about before is really a strength over here. And with many different venues and different playing spaces, the community's small, and that's the introductions that I'm more than happy to make and be with.
We have another question in the chat here. It says, do you take applications for this opportunity once a year? Is it imperative to have other funding lined up if you do not have a big budget requirement for a particular strand of research?
I'll answer that one. Yes, it's once a year. So we're now taking applications for 2024. So we're a little bit ahead of ourselves this year. You know, you'll have seen there's been 2 call outs this year. One was for 2023, and now we're doing the 2024 one to try and get things started as soon as possible. So in terms of the funding, this is something that, you know, Louise said earlier. We acknowledge that the €10,000 financial resource that goes towards this is not enough to bring something to full production. It's not enough to necessarily pay artists and residency, accommodation, subsistence, and things like that. So we need to see that when you're preparing your budget, you can demonstrate that it is financially feasible. So, for example, if you were applying for project funding tomorrow, for example, if you've got an application you're submitting tomorrow, and you can say that in your application, say, I am bidding for this project fund, this is the project I'm bidding for, this is how I will enhance that with the NDRP support. And you can, you know, you have to show us that actually it will enhance, not duplicate what you've already applied for funding for. However, what you will also need to do is give us a second budget that will show us how you will make the residencies work if the funding is not successful. So, for example, how you can make the residencies work if you want to work on a proportion of your research or develop the concept a little bit further outside of the project funding within the €10,000 budget that you've got. Don't forget that has to cover accommodation, travel, artist fees, things like that, where accommodation isn't provided, of course, but those are the things you need to think about. So you need to think about the feasibility of that. So ideally, if you have existing resources from a bursary or a project fund or something, or an agility award or something that you're bringing towards this, or if you've got an application in, you need to show us how you can realize the residencies within the budget that you've got. So one budget for your ideal circumstances, the other budget if you're not successful. What we have done in the past few years is have to go back to a short list of candidates and ask them for further information on budgets generally. So the more detail you give us, the better. We need to know that you've thought this through. It's a large investment for all of us as organizations, and we don't take that for granted, and we want to make sure that people understand that we want to make this feasible and we want to make it work for you. And we are also constrained by we need to see you paying the artists appropriately as well. So that's key.
I believe you have a question from Stacey. You had your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering if the additional funding comes from a different discipline. Does that affect the thinking on so for example, if I have a music bursary and part of my music bursary is actual sound and music research for a dance project, which is mostly what I do, so it's very cross-disciplinary what I do.
No, that doesn't make a difference. No, it doesn't matter. The resources are resources that you're investing into that project. You just name the resources, name whether they're confirmed or applied for, or that kind of thing. But absolutely no problem. If those resources are intended for that project and will be spent on that project, then those are resources you can use to invest in it.
Thank you.
I would even add that as an extension of Sheila's answer here, but also what she said before, that we need to understand feasibility, but then the range and the scope of what can be done is very wide. So if you have limited resources, but your project is to be with just a single person in the studio, that's a possibility. And you have much more resources, but you have 5 people. So the range of the project can be completely different than the scope and the nature of the project. There's a lot of flexibility. We just need to make sure it can work.
We have another question in the chat. It says, do the venues have accommodation lists? Is there a rate of pay guidelines available through Dance Ireland?
I'll respond to that one. Accommodations is, so we can, here at Dance Ireland, one of the things that we provide, because we coordinate and administer this resource, is we can help you to identify, our team here can help you, Katie, the wonderful Katie here, will help you to identify some accommodation options. We can support you in managing the funds. We're open to a conversation around that, how that is coordinated in support of your project. So yeah, those are things that can be talked through. Obviously, there are local partners will be able to also recommend, probably better than us, local accommodation. What will happen is once the artist is offered the award, you're encouraged to contact directly the partners you're going to be working with. And that conversation happens directly with the partners. And then the financial and the administrative conversation happens with us in terms of in Dance Ireland, and reporting as well, because we coordinate all of that. And the other part of that was pay guidelines available. No, there isn't. There aren't. It's something that we actually are going to be investing in later this year and early next year into developing rates of pay guidance for dancers. That's on our list to do, but it's not something we've got. But as Louise said earlier, we're happy to have a conversation if you need guidance and support on that.
I think if you ask around, dancers will give you an answer, or choreographers. Everybody knows. If just know if you go on a really low base, you're really exposing yourself to review or criticism.
There's just a follow up with that question. The accommodation question was in terms of budgeting for the application.
You need to budget accommodation in your application. Yes, absolutely. You should be able to kind of get a guidance list. I mean, for Dublin, you're talking, it could be 150 to 200 euro a night. You've got to think realistically. Look up booking.com, look up those places, have a look at some guidance around the per night accommodation, and use that to cost it realistically. Yeah, that's kind of what you're going to need to do. We're very aware that accommodation is expensive. I know we have some discounted rates, but they're not great even at that. Sometimes the online rates are much better. But yeah, open to a conversation around that as well if you've got any questions.
I think you have specific questions even before or while preparing the budget, you can also send an email and about a price regionally, or like we also have access to specific rates for accommodation. So if you want to budget and be accurate, you can ask questions to the different partners.
Something to remind people about as well is that we do have access budget, and if people need additional support, both for making this application or in terms of the proposal that you are putting in, we are open to conversations around that and can draw on some resources to support you.
I was just coming in, Louise, on just back to the accommodation. Yeah, again, just to reiterate, it's helpful as soon as someone is awarded to kind of make contact around that, because it just really helps at getting cost-effective prices on either arts-friendly accommodation or even hotels, or we have the opportunity of the city council apartments as well, but it's usually very advanced notice, but they're reduced rate as well.
I'll just add to that, because I could see that you're looking for information for us to make available. I think what that we'll only know based on the time of year that you can. You're looking to do the residencies in each area, and that is obviously entirely dependent on your own schedules. So yeah, I would advise looking online as well in advance of contacting everybody, so you've got a good broad view around that. This is not something that I think we can make available with the notes for this. I think it's on a case-by-case basis.
Also, because it can be seasonal, it can vary with time, it can be circumstantial. I mean, it's hard to just put a line there and promise that next summer you will have this rate. We can't do this.
Always have a contingency line in your budget. That's, always have a contingency line in your budget. So do allow for that, for those unexpected rise in costs.
Do we have any other questions from anyone? No? So would Louise or Sheila like to close out the meeting?
Just to say, if any questions come to you after the meeting's over and something comes to mind that you didn't check, or you have another read of the guidelines and see something that maybe you'd like to have a little bit more information about, please feel free to email us. There's an email address on the guidelines. Yeah, just considering feasibility, as detailed a budget as you can. All budgets are projections. You're in the same boat as all of us in projecting for next year, but I hope we've given you some helpful hints about what would help make it easier for the panel to assess and to understand really clearly what it is you need, and so that we can see whether that is something that we can support. And as we said as well, it's not just about the budgets, it is about understanding your artistic vision and proposal as well. So it's both sides of those things, and that if you do have any additional needs or access needs, you can get in touch with us, and we're really happy to talk about that as well, in terms of making the application an easier process and in terms of making the proposal an easier process as well. So very happy to answer any questions.
I would just also add that just to kind of go through the assessment process. So the deadline is on, sorry, I don't have the details in front of me. Hang on a second. The deadline is on the,
it's the 5th.
Yes, it's the 6th of December. 10 a.m. and that's really important because that's scheduled around all of our schedules, so we need to make sure that you have it in by 10 a.m. on Wednesday 6th of December. The information is there. The panel will then meet the following week. The panel will be made up of representatives from each of our organizations, most likely those who are here in the room today, plus an independent artist who will be there to give that sort of independent eyesight and monitoring as well. We don't know who that's going to be yet because we're waiting to see who applies for the award. Once we know who's applied for the award, we'll then be able to identify an artist or from a list of artists who that will be representing. Then we hope to be in touch with successful artists as soon as possible, but there may be a second round of information required. In the past 2 to, I think even 3 years, we've gone back to the shortlisted artists and asked for more information about budgets mainly, which is why we've been emphasizing that today. So so there may be a second round where we ask for further information, further clarification, or we might ask you to refine your proposal a little bit if we feel that it's just beyond a feasible place, but it might be worthy of support. We may come back to you with that. So that's why it's sort of an open process for us in that sense. We're hoping to have everything confirmed by early January so we can get things in the diary and get moving with the award support as soon as possible. Don't think there's anything else that anybody would like to say? No? Okay, well then let's end it there. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. And as we said before, there is email addresses that you can contact us. The information is all online. The application is through Google Form, but you must send your documents as indicated on the brief. Please read all the brief and follow the instructions carefully. So because it's been sent out to all partners, we want to have the same information sent around to everybody. And we want to make sure it's a fair and equitable process. So thank you for your time. And we look forward to receiving your applications.
Thank you.
Take care now. Bye.